My wife texted, "I'm taking the kids and leaving. You'll hear from my lawyer." I replied, "Noted." Then I canceled her private cards and withheld all support. 72 hours later, her lawyer called me desperate for a deal. I, 42 male, was in the middle of a quarterly forecast review when my phone buzzed. It was from my wife, Caitlin, 39. We've been married for 15 years. I thought it might be a picture of the kids, Claire, 12, and Howard, 8, at the park. It wasn't. The text read, "I'm taking the kids and leaving. You'll hear from my lawyer." I stared at it. The numbers on my spreadsheet swam in my vision. My first instinct was pure animal panic. I fumbled with my phone, my thumb hovering over her contact. My heart was a drum against my ribs. Call her. Fix this. But what would I say? Beg? Yell? The text wasn't a conversation starter. It was a door slamming shut from 100 miles away. I stood up and walked to the window, my legs unsteady. I looked down at the street below, but I saw nothing. My mind was a chaotic slideshow. The kids' faces, the day we bought our house, Caitlin laughing on our last vacation. This couldn't be real. There was no fight, no warning, just execution. I tried to call her, straight to voicemail. I called again, voicemail. The finality of it started to sink in, and the panic began to curdle into something else, something cold and sharp. I'm a data analyst. My job is to find the pattern, the signal in the noise. Her message, the cold language, the immediate threat of a lawyer, was the signal. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This was step one of a plan. Her plan. The thought cleared my head like an ice bath. I was a variable in her equation, one she expected to behave in a predictable way, fall apart, chase her, offer anything to make it stop. I sat back down at my desk, the spreadsheet still glowing on the screen. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clicking into place. It was a defense mechanism, I guess. When the emotional response is too overwhelming, the logical brain takes over. I looked at her text again. I typed back a single word, noted. Then I put my phone on silent and got to work. My work, for the rest of the day, had nothing to do with quarterly forecasts. Step 1, damage control. My first thought was chaos, but my second was practical. Money. I provide a very comfortable life. Caitlin hasn't worked since Claire was born. Her lifestyle, the expensive hobbies, the organic everything, the endless stream of packages from upscale brands, is funded entirely by my salary. I opened my browser. I am the primary account holder for our American Express Platinum card. Caitlin has a supplementary card that functions as her wallet. With a shaking hand, I navigated the website. I felt a pang of something. Guilt, betrayal, as I clicked through the prompts. I didn't report it lost. I was too honest for that. I simply logged into my account and, under Manage Users, I froze her card. The website asked for a reason. I typed account holder's discretion. Next, the debit card. It's linked to the main household account where my salary is deposited. It's my personal account, but she's had access to it for years. I couldn't remove her without going to the bank, but I could control the funds. I logged in and transferred 95% of the balance to a separate, high-yield savings account in my name only. I left about $1,000 in there, enough for necessities, for the kids. I wasn't a monster, but I was cutting off the fuel line to her war machine. Step 2. Legal counsel. I have a lawyer, Miss Brooke, on a small retainer for my consulting work. She's sharp, pragmatic, and allergic to drama. My email to her was a mess, a jumble of panic and facts. I attached a screenshot of the text. Her reply came back in under an hour, a beacon of calm in my storm. Deep breath, Joel. Do not engage with her further. Do not offer anything. Document everything. Let's talk at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We will handle this. That night, I walked into a house that was silent in a way I'd never heard before. Every creak of the floorboards echoed. I saw Howard's sneakers by the door and felt a physical ache in my chest. I went upstairs and saw the closet. A chunk of her clothes was gone, the expensive stuff. Her jewelry box was empty. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. She had been planning, packing, lying. The calls started around dinner time. I let them go to voicemail, my heart pounding each time the phone lit up. Voicemail 1. Joel, my Amex was just frozen. Frozen. I was trying to buy the kids pizza. What is happening? Call me. This is not okay. Her voice was high-pitched, laced with disbelief. Voicemail 2. An hour later. Okay, I see what you did with the bank account. Are you insane? Are you actually punishing your children because you're having a tantrum? Jenna is a lawyer, a paralegal, whatever, and she says this is financial abuse and you could get in serious trouble. You will be hearing from my lawyer. The mention of her sister Jenna clarified things. Jenna, twice divorced and perpetually aggrieved, had been whispering in Caitlin's ear for years. I ate a bowl of cereal for dinner, standing over the sink. I noted the times of her calls. This morning, not 72 hours later, I got the call from Ms. Brooke. Joel, a Mr. Craig representing Caitlin, just called me. He started with a lot of bluster about financial abuse and your unilateral aggression. But when I didn't bite, his tone changed. He started talking about Caitlin's distress and the well-being of the children. He was fishing, trying to see if we'd panic and offer a quick, large cash settlement to make it go away. Apparently, 3 days of living in Jenna's cramped two-bedroom apartment with 2 restless kids was not the glorious liberation Caitlin had envisioned. Reality was biting hard. Ms. Brooke continued. He ended the call by saying he was sure we could come to a swift and amicable temporary arrangement. Joel, that's lawyer speak for my client is out of cash and this is not going according to plan. They expected you to beg. You didn't. I'm not a hero. I'm a mess. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. But they made a critical error. They assumed that a quiet man was a weak man. They mistook my patience for passivity. This is just the beginning, and Caitlin is about to learn the difference. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks of agonizing silence and strategic maneuvering. The initial panic has subsided, replaced by a grim resolve. Thank you for the messages of support. It's a strange comfort to know I'm not alone in this. Miss Brooke advised against making any formal offers. Let them sweat, she said. The burden of action is on them. They're the ones who blew up the status quo. So we waited. The pressure campaign, however, began in earnest. The emotional leverage. The first move was, predictably, the children. My phone rang last Tuesday, and it was Claire. Hi, sweetie. How are you? Daddy? Her voice was wobbly. Mommy's crying a lot. She said she can't buy us our favorite snacks. Aunt Jenna is making us eat weird vegan stuff. A pause. I could hear Jenna whispering in the background. And Howard misses his bed. He has to sleep on the floor in a sleeping bag. It was a gut punch. A calculated, vicious blow using my daughter as the weapon. My instinct was to promise anything, to say I'd fix it. But Miss Brooke's voice was in my head. Document. Don't engage. Oh, sweetie, that sounds tough, I said, my voice thick with emotion I was trying to hide. You know your bed and Howard's bed are right here waiting for you. The house is waiting for you. I miss you both so much. This is a grown-up problem, Claire. It's not your fault, and I am working hard to sort it out. I love you. Mommy said you changed the locks. I closed my eyes. That's not true, honey. The locks are the same. Can you put your mom on the phone for a second? The line went dead. I meticulously typed up a summary of the call, including the direct quotes I could remember, and emailed it to Ms. Brooke. Her reply, parental alienation. It's a classic, and it's ugly. We will use this. The discovery I spent the last week in a haze, rattling around the empty house. I needed a copy of Howard's birth certificate for a school form, and knew Caitlin kept important documents in the study. While searching through the filing cabinet, I noticed her old laptop tucked away on a bookshelf, gathering dust. She'd gotten a new MacBook Air for her birthday last year and hadn't touched this one since. I don't know why I did it. A mix of sadness and a gnawing suspicion that I was missing a big piece of the puzzle. I opened it up and powered it on. It went to a login screen. I tried all the usual passwords, our anniversary, the kids' birthdays, our dog's name. Nothing. Locked out. I felt a surge of frustration and was about to give up when I remembered a conversation from a year ago. She'd been crowing about a new password system she'd learned at a digital security for women seminar, one I'd paid for, of course. It was based on a memorable phrase. I sat there for 20 minutes, my mind blank, and then it hit me. A phrase she used constantly when she was feeling spiritual after her yoga classes. My truth shines one. I typed it in. The screen flickered and the desktop appeared. There was no affair folder. It wasn't that simple. I started poking around. The browser history was the first clue. Websites for condo rentals but only 2-bedroom units. Searches for co-applicant mortgage requirements. Then the email. She was logged in. I opened it, my heart pounding. I didn't have to look far. There was a long email chain with her sister Jenna, with the subject line, "The Phoenix Plan." It laid out everything. The timeline for leaving, the curated list of assets to demand, the name of the lawyer Jenna had recommended. And the name Fred was everywhere. Fred, her wellness guru. "Once Joel is served, Fred thinks we should offer to settle quickly if he gives us the house in a lump sum," Caitlin wrote in one email. "Fred's studio equipment isn't cheap, and we need to get set up before the Bali trip in the fall." I felt the air leave my lungs. Bali. Studio equipment. I dug deeper and found the Notes app. There, she drafted a budget. It was a list of my life's work, converted into their shopping list. Joel's 401k, S-value, $XXX. Investment portfolio, $XXX. At the bottom was a projected monthly budget for her and Fred, including condo mortgage, Fred's car payment, and a line item for $3,000 a month, discretionary spending. They weren't just planning a divorce. They were planning to gut me and wear my financial skin as a costume. I spent the next 5 hours meticulously photographing every screen with my phone, backing the pictures up to a new secure cloud account, and then to a separate hard drive. I felt sick, but also strangely vindicated. I wasn't crazy. My reaction wasn't an overreaction. The next morning I sent a link to the secure folder to Miss Brooke. I didn't add any commentary. The evidence spoke for itself. She called me an hour later. Her voice was different. The usual calm professionalism was gone, replaced by a cold fury. "Joel," she said, "this is no longer a messy divorce. This is attempted, premeditated fraud. They've given us a gift. A very, very ugly gift. We're done waiting. We're filing tomorrow. Update 2, it's been 3 months of a grinding, ugly war. The idea that any divorce is quick is a fantasy. The legal system moves at the speed of a glacier, and the emotional toll is a daily reality." After my discovery on Caitlin's old laptop, Ms. Brooke filed a motion for a temporary orders hearing, requesting I be granted temporary sole physical custody due to the evidence of parental alienation and the conspiracy to commit fraud. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. 6 weeks of hell. During that time, their tactics got more desperate and pathetic. Jenna, having been warned by Mr. Craig that Caitlin's Phoenix Plan emails could get them both in serious trouble, went underground on that front. But she started a new, insidious campaign. The social smear Jenna started talking, not posting online. Ms. Brooke had warned them about libel, but whispering, calling the parents of my kids' friends, other people in our social circle, and painting a picture of me as an unstable, controlling man who had flown into a rage and cut Caitlin off from her children. It was a masterclass in character assassination without leaving a paper trail. It almost worked. A few people grew cold. I got pitying looks at school drop-off. But then, a breakthrough. A dad from Howard's soccer team pulled me aside one Saturday. "Hey man," he said awkwardly. "I don't know what's going on, but my wife got a weird call from a Jenna. Just wanted you to know it sounded like a load of crap. If you need anything, let us know." It was a small gesture that felt monumental. It reminded me that a good reputation is built over years, and it can withstand the desperate attacks of a liar. The hearing and the consequences. The day of the temporary orders hearing was surreal. Caitlin arrived dressed like a grieving widow, dabbing at her eyes. Jenna sat behind her, radiating hate. Ms. Brooke didn't grandstand. She calmly presented the timeline. The text. The coached phone call from Claire. I had the recording, which the judge allowed. And then she submitted the printed out emails between Caitlin and Jenna and the budget from the Notes app. Caitlin's lawyer, Mr. Craig, objected furiously, but the judge overruled him, stating the evidence was directly relevant to the circumstances of the separation and the welfare of the children. You could see the moment the judge finished reading the Bali trip and Fred's car payment email. His expression went from neutral to stone. The ruling was a bombshell for them. I was granted temporary sole physical custody. The judge stated that Caitlin's actions demonstrated a clear and disturbing pattern of prioritizing financial gain and a third-party relationship over the stability and emotional well-being of her children. Caitlin was granted supervised visitation twice a week at a certified facility. The word supervised made her audibly gasp. Picking up the kids that night was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Howard clung to me, but Claire was quiet, confused. Caitlin stood in Jenna's doorway and hissed, "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed your family." "No, Caitlin. I said, my voice quiet but shaking with rage. I'm just the one left to clean up the wreckage. The revenge. The slow, methodical grind. With the kids safe at home, the real work began. This was my revenge. Not a fiery explosion, but a slow, methodical dismantling of her entire case, brick by brick. The forensic accountant, we hired the best. He spent 2 months combing through a decade of financial records. His report was staggering. Caitlin had been skimming systematically for years, taking extra cash from ATM withdrawals for groceries, selling expensive items I'd bought for the house on Facebook Marketplace, and pocketing the cash, getting cash back on debit purchases. It wasn't a fortune, but it added up. The total she had secretly diverted to a private bank account, one she conveniently failed to disclose, was over $32,000. It was the seed money for the Phoenix Plan. The Fred investigation. We hired a private investigator, a former cop Miss Brooke recommended. He was worth every penny. Fred Croft was born Craig Finkelstein. He had a history. The PI uncovered 2 previous divorce cases in other states where Craig's name appeared. He hadn't been sued himself, but the husbands had accused their wives of funneling money to him. We weren't able to get sworn affidavits, nobody wanted to relive it, but we got something better. The PI found one of the ex-husbands, a retired dentist, who was so angry at seeing it happen again that he agreed to speak to Ms. Brooke. He provided copies of his own financial discovery, showing huge sums of money going to Craig for life coaching and spiritual investment. It was a clear, predatory pattern. We now had an airtight case, not just for divorce, but for fraud. The ball was in our court and we were about to serve for the match. Final update. It's been nearly a year since my life was detonated by a text message. The dust has settled, not into the picture I once had, but into a new landscape I've learned to navigate. I wanted to write a final chapter for anyone who has followed this journey. The final phase wasn't a dramatic courtroom showdown. It was a 4-hour mediation session in a sterile conference room that smelled like stale coffee. It was me, Miss Brooke, Caitlin, and a pale, sweating Mr. Craig. Before the session, Miss Brooke had presented our case to Mr. Craig in a thick, spiral-bound volume. It contained the forensic accountant's report detailing the $32,000 in hidden funds. It contained the PI's entire file on Fred, aka Craig Finkelstein, including the documented evidence from the dentist in another state. It contained the parental alienation evidence. And it contained a draft of a civil fraud complaint we were prepared to file against both Caitlin and Craig. The offer on the table was brutal and non-negotiable. Custody. I retained sole physical and legal custody. Caitlin would have bi-weekly, unsupervised daytime visits, contingent on her completing a court-mandated parenting course and a psychological evaluation. No overnights for at least 2 years. Assets. The house and all its contents were to be signed over to me. Of the remaining marital assets, my retirement accounts being the bulk of it, her 50% share would have the $32,000 she stole deducted directly from it. Support. No alimony. Period. Given the evidence of fraud, Miss Brooke argued successfully that any claim to spousal support was forfeited. We offered her a one-time lump sum payout that was barely enough to cover her legal fees and a security deposit on an apartment. Caitlin started the mediation by trying to cry. She spoke about our memories, about the good years. It was a pathetic performance. Miss Brooke simply pushed the file on Craig Finkelstein across the table and said, "Is this one of the good years you were referring to?" Caitlin was silent for the rest of the session. Mr. Craig, knowing he was beaten, advised her to sign. She did, her signature a furious scribble. The aftermath. The consequences of the Phoenix Plan have been grimly predictable. Craig Finkelstein vanished the moment his name appeared in legal documents. The PI noted he has recently started a new Instagram account, now offering services as a relationship exit strategist. The parasite has rebranded. Caitlin lives in a dingy apartment complex across town. The lump sum is gone. She works as a cashier at a large home improvement store, forced into a fluorescent-lit reality of a job she feels is beneath her. Jenna, I've heard, has kept her distance. The bonds of sisterly outrage apparently don't extend to co-signing a lease. She sees the kids every other weekend. I am meticulously polite and emotionally barren in our exchanges. I drop them off, I pick them up. Her attempts to engage me are met with a calm, Is there anything else regarding the children? The entitlement is still there, simmering under the surface. She isn't sorry for what she did. She's enraged that she was caught and that it failed so spectacularly. She recently sent a rambling email demanding I pay for her car repairs, claiming it was for the safety of the children. I had Ms. Brooke reply with a link to the city's public transit website. There was no further correspondence. The new normal. As for me, I'm healing. It's a slow process. The betrayal hollowed out a part of me, and some days, the silence in the house is deafening. But there are good days. Last weekend, I was in the backyard with the kids. Claire was trying to teach me a TikTok dance, and Howard was trying to get our old dog to play fetch, and I just watched them, and I felt content. It wasn't the ecstatic happiness of a life without problems, but the quiet, sturdy peace of a life that had survived a hurricane. The revenge wasn't a single satisfying moment of triumph. It was the long, exhausting process of standing my ground. It was the mountain of paperwork, the sleepless nights, the quiet resolve to see it through. It was choosing strategy over anger and facts over drama. She built a fantasy, and I dismantled it with the truth. She was left with the consequences of her choices, and I was left with everything that was real and ever truly mattered. My children, my home, and a future I get to build on my own terms.